What is the best item to sell in PALWORLD if you want to make a ton of cash? That's a question I decided to Google, as that's one of my favorite things to do in games, but apparently nobody has the answer quite yet, and for some reason Google really just wants to troll me. I guess my fellow min-maxers haven't done the task yet, so I'll do it for you, which is quite simple. All we have to do is figure out the sale price of all 93 craftable items to get our answer. But then there's also food. Okay, we'll simply also do the same thing with the 27 raw food items. Oh wait, you can cook them. Fine, let's add 40 cooked items to the list. There's medicine. 7 of those bad boys, and that's 167 total items. And just like that, we can find out that the most expensive item you can sell is the homing sphere launcher for a whopping 46,000 gold coins. And that's how I earned a total of 6,969,420 gold coins. Thanks for watching. Oh, sorry, that's just the sale price. What about actual profit? Well, we'll have to figure out the cost of each individual resource, use this simple Excel formula, and boom, just like that, we can see that the most profitable item is indeed still the homing sphere launcher. But wait, all items have different workloads to create. So after calculating that for every craftable item and dividing it by total profit, we can find out that the best item to sell by profit to workload ratio is in fact the Mega Shield at a whopping 25.6 profit per workload ratio, and the homing sphere does come in second at a respectable 12.71. That's all good and fine, but not all resources are created equal. See, both these items require ancient civilization parts to create, which you can only obtain from beating alpha pals and bosses. And sure, they respawn every hour and you can rack them up, but it's still important to note, which is why I decided to go through each item and classify it in these 7 categories. We have our super renewable resources in wood, stone, and crops that can be easily mined, and then resources such as palladium, fiber, carbon fiber, and charcoal that they can be turned into. We have our farmable resources that are pretty abundant like your ore, especially if you know where to find them, but they still require you to leave your home base if you want a ton of them. We have the buy and farm resources that you can usually get from the ranch with certain pals or buy from merchants, but remember, if you buy an item from the merchant, it will come at a 10 times premium always. We have our straight purchasable items that you can farm from wild pals, but if you desperately need them, I would recommend just buying them, especially with how much money you'll be having. Then we have our okay farmables, which will be our ores in more dangerous and inconvenient locations, while also being a bit rarer. We have our work intensive resources, like PAL metal ingots that take 500 workload to create, and our circuit boards, gunpowder, etc., which take several steps. And finally, we have our rarest farmables, which can only be found through pals, and are an absolute pain if you want to get a ton of them. As you can see, 4/5 of the items in the top of profit to workload all require rare farmables, being the ancient civilization parts. But the number 4 spot will be your absolute best friend in your money making journey, and that is of course the nail. For 1 iron ingot, you gain 2 nails, and each individual nail sells for a whopping 160 gold coins. That means for 1 iron ingot, which normally only sells for 20 gold coins, you can spend 30 more workload to sell them for 320 gold coins, which is an insane profit of 300. Which kind of skews this whole chart and why I decided to make every single item that requires ingots of any kind to be yellow as a warning to the viewer, and unless you already had a surplus of rare ingots or pal metal ingots, it would have probably been more profitable just to make nails. Take the single shot sphere launcher for example. Sure, it sells for 10,920, but with the required 50 ingots you could have instead made 100 nails, which would have sold for 16,000, making them already a lot better. I could have calculated the cost of every item based on nail opportunity cost, but in case they get nerfed or other things get buffed, the formula will be a lot easier to change, so this is how I'll keep it for now. While nails are incredible and should be your go-to money-making source, they are still only classified as a farmable product in my eyes. What I love are items that you can sell at huge quantities without having to do too much work yourself, as they can run in the background while you take care of things like exploring. Sadly, there aren't too many items that you can build that only require wood, stone, or any of their byproducts, but the best one by far is the stone spear. The big problem with crafting items that aren't stackable is that while you can queue a bunch of them up, you can only create one at a time, and you have to sit there acquiring them before your workers create another one. Also, you have limited inventory space and can only hold a certain amount of that item before going to the merchant, but thankfully you can convince one to move in with you so that it isn't as big of a problem. The actual best item you can create with renewable resources are repair kits, as they are stackable and created in an instance. Now sadly you do have to do a multi-step process of first turning the wood into fiber, but thankfully you do get 2 fiber for every 1 wood, and if you are ever tempted to sell wood, I'd actually suggest first turning it into fiber anyways, because they do each still sell for 1 gold coin, meaning you'll double your potential money. That being said, it's only an okay way to earn money, as each repair kit sells for 20 gold coins, but it's not amazing either. Still a ton better than selling something like bats, which actually only net you 8 gold coins for a whopping profit of minus 32. While I thought repair kits were going to scratch my itch for an easy AFK money making scheme, it just didn't lead to big enough profits and I needed something better, which was when I let the Stardew Valley player in me take over as I looked into farming. See, the great thing about farming is that it is a super renewable resource as it keeps coming back and back and can actually yield you some decent profits. Now the startup costs can be slightly annoying, where you have to be level 15 for wheat, level 32 for tomatoes, and a whopping level 38 for lettuce. You also need to get the seeds, but thankfully if you look at these following pals, you can convince them to let you hold them real quick. I also believe you can find them in some dungeon chests, so make sure not to sell them even though they might be tempting to do so, as they sell for a decent amount. You can also always buy them from certain merchants, so keep that in mind as it is a good initial investment. You'll also need pal fluids, which can be a bit annoying, but as long as you ride along the coast with a mount and like a gun or a bow, you can get a ton from flax, pangolets, celeries, gobfins, serpents, and kelpsies. And of course, all this information can be found at the PAL deck under possible drops, and you can find their habitats here. Once you have the resources and the levels, you can set up one of your bases to be a designated money-making empire with berry, wheat, tomato, and lettuce farms. Now I'll be honest, do I know the best way to set up a farm to maximize profits? Absolutely not. This process has already taken up so much time, and without console commands, all of this has been done with pure effort, so if you're enjoying it so far and you consider leaving a like, it would boost up my sanity more than a nice rest in a nice high quality hot spring. That being said, I'll eventually try and figure that out for you guys, but even in the early game, I know that just berries and wheat can make a ton of money, so don't be scared to do so. In the late game, you can add in those tomatoes and lettuce crops, as they will bolster your income incredibly as well. I'm going to make a future video trying to find the best money-making crop layout farm, as it is kind of janky, but will be quite fun, and I'll give you my hottest tips like this sneak peek, one of quick harvesting by queuing up cooked goods, then cancelling them so you don't need to run around and gather them by hand. Anyways, while the raw ingredients of berries, lettuce, and tomatoes already sell quite well, turning them into cooked berries and salads double the possible profits, and it is definitely worth it. Funnily enough, turning 3 wheat into 1 flour loses you 28 gold, so you'd much rather just sell the raw wheat. If you don't mind the extra effort and workload, you can turn your wheat into flour and then combine that with your raw berries to earn 10 more profit than if you had just sold the wheat and cooked berries. Don't make bread, as it's better to just sell raw wheat. I also wanted to be more precise with the jam-filled bun and its profit to workload ratios, so I added the 10 workload you need to make flour to show you that you're only getting a profit to workload ratio of 0.17, so it's almost not worth it. But to me, the idea of showing up to a merchant with thousands of sandwiches is too funny to pass up on, so I don't mind the extra effort. Major update. I was completely wrong, guys, and thanks to the power of this spreadsheet, I've been able to see the error of my ways. The idea of selling salads deeply unsettled me, as who wants to eat a bunch of salad when you could enjoy something way better, like pizza? I think turning a base into a full-blown pizzeria operation could actually be the ticket you need for true renewable profits. For pizza, what you need is flour, berries, tomatoes, and milk. Why you need berries? I don't know. I like pineapple on pizza, but berries might be going a little bit too far. Anyways, the milk made me classify pizza as a non-super renewable good, as getting a bunch of cows to make you milk can be kind of annoying, but definitely doable. That's when I realized you could do what actual businesses do and buy your own milk if you wanted to, because even if you increase the total cost of the pizza with the 100 coins you need to buy the 2 milk, and consider the 30 gold you lose from making wheat, you can still get 110 total profit, and just need a farm that is creating tomatoes, wheat, and berries. But if you want to take it a step further, you could even buy berries when you're out, because as long as you turn them into pizza afterwards, you can still get a profit of 30, which isn't incredible, but maybe you can produce enough wheat and tomatoes where it will be worth it. Or you can just keep your farm flexible and set up a bunch of the crop that you need when you're running out of it, which is what I'm going to do really quickly. But like I said, one of the next videos I'll be doing is setting up the ultimate pizzeria AFK money making machine, and I know there's going to be a lot of selective breeding of matzarinas in that one to get the full profit. Now in terms of other cooked foods, if you were ever tempted to sell raw meat, you should always cook it first, especially the basics like lamb and chicken, as you make a lot more money and it takes no effort. Let's quickly talk about medical supplies, and if any of them are worth it, and the simple answer is absolutely not. Most of them require beautiful flowers, which I found to be the rarest item to find, even harder than ancient civilization parts, as they only reliably spawn in these 3 locations and can be gained from the pals Petalia and the Lylines, but they're not common and pretty high level. They can also be a rare drop from the Wumpos and Rybunny, and the amount of Rybunnies I farmed made me want to report myself to PETA. The drop rate seems to be around 10%, if not less, but that is pure feeling and speculation. The medicines also have insane workloads, the highest in the game, which leads to terrible profit to workload ratios. Funnily, the memory wiping juice is the worst item when you consider profit, as it only sells for 100 and takes so much to make. It's even worse than the grappling guns, which are expensive to make, cost ancient civilization parts, and only sell for 1 no matter what tier they are. Let's quickly mention some special items. The merchants sell a bunch of schematics, but no matter what the item is, it only sells for 18 gold coins after you've crafted it, so while it's fun, it's just not worth it. Speaking of schematics, you can find some for weapons and armors, which will increase their stats, but require more to make them. However, they're not worth it, as they sell for the exact same price. But it can be nice that you don't need to research the tech to build them, as that was a real pain for me. Another thing that's really nice is that the damage on the item actually doesn't matter at all. So take your refined metal pickaxe for instance. To build a new one, it costs 30 stone, 40 wood, and 10 refined ingots. Meanwhile, repairing it will cost you 12 stone, 16 wood, and 4 refined ingots. But what really matters is the metal, so it costs you 6 refined ingots in difference to make a new one. Now those 6 ingots could have been used to make 12 nails, which would sell for 1,920, which is way better than selling the broken pickaxe for 700 gold coins. But it's still an interesting thought and might be worth it when it comes to items not involving metal. So while this Excel sheet is very handy, it's also shareable, and I've included it as the first link in the description below so you can look at it and play with it however you'd like. There might be some minor mistakes here and there, and if there are, please let me know and I will do my best to fix them. Let's recap by finally talking about the 10 best items for you to sell according to my extensive research and min-max craziness, but at the end of the day, these are still my opinions. And at the number 10 spot, we have the Mega Shield. It sells for a lot, but costs ancient civilization parts. At some point, you won't have any more need for them. In fact, if you were to build every single item that requires them, you would only need 115, and some of these items like the grappling hooks are a bit redundant. But you might want more for multiple egg incubators, as each of these cost 2. If you are farming bosses every hour and do have the extra parts, then the Mega Shield has the best profit to ancient part value. Please never sell these ancient parts on their own, as they only go for 100, which isn't much at all. The Mega Shield would be higher on this list, but they have the annoying problem that you have to acquire them each time before you can build the next one, and there's a bug where if your inventory is full, it causes the whole thing to mess up, where you'll have to rebuild the assembly line, and you'll forever have these fun bags in your base. At the number 9 spot, we have the before mentioned jam-filled bun, a good source of renewable income in the mid-game before you have access to tomatoes at level 32. They aren't that much more profitable than just selling raw wheat and cooked berries, but because they still are, they make this list if you don't mind putting in a tad more work for them, and they do make a great source of nutrition for your pals. At number 8, I have any of the cooked meats. You can take a look at the Excel sheet if you want to specifically hunt for the more profitable ones, the best probably being the Mammoris steak, especially as they're a good source of high quality PAL fluids. Food isn't needed outside of feeding yourself and your pals, and you should have enough of that with the abundance of berries, unless you want to maximize the buffs other foods can grant you. Cooked meat is a decent, quick source of casual income, but nothing that should be taken too seriously. Repair kits show up at number 7 as a good source of renewable income without having to set up a farm. If you just want a bunch of stone and wood anyways, then selling the excess as repair kits can feel like a decent option. Having to make the fiber is a bit annoying, especially with the bugginess of the pals, and the fact that they only sell for 20 each keeps them closer to the bottom of the list. At number 6, I have tomatoes, selling for 15 coins each, and being a building material for something higher on this list makes them a versatile cash crop that's great for your AFK money making journey. Needing to be level 32 until you can reliably farm them does suck, but with enough power leveling, you can get there pretty quickly. Wheat is similar to tomatoes, selling for 10 instead of 15, but higher up on this list at number 5 as you get access to it at level 15, and building their farm is easier as it doesn't require any PAL fluids. Wool takes my number 4 spot, as you gain access to farming it super early with a level 5 ranch, and nothing is more AFK than setting up a bunch of wool producing animals while you are out exploring. Having the wool sell for 10 gold coins is fairly decent for how little effort you have to put into it. Just make sure you don't turn it into cloth or high quality cloth before selling it, as you will actually lose money when compared to just selling the wool. At number 3 we have the king of early game AFK money making in cooked berries. You gain access to the farm at level 5, and if you've played PALWORLD, you'll know just how easily you can stack up a ton of berries. You could easily make an AFK money making machine growing berries, then cooking them to double their value for decent profits with again minimal effort. In second place we have our pizza, a fully renewable product selling for 290 is truly incredible, and I believe is going to be your best bet for a fully AFK money making strategy. The fact that you can buy your milk and still make decent money is incredible, and like I said, I will be exploring this more to see just how far I can take it. But finally, in first place, we of course have our nails. If you want to put in actual effort to make a ton of money, then definitely go around to all of the ore locations, set up a temporary base as a teleport location, and start making that insane cash. The downsides of actually having to put in some active effort do get outweighed by the profit margins this one item can bring you, and it ends up being well worth the time spent hitting ore. Now that you know how to make a ton of money, what are the best things to spend it on? Well, before I talk about that, let me just give you one bit of advice. When you are talking to merchants, make sure not to get impatient and spam your click button, because you will commit a crime. But apparently if you do it in one shot and there are no witnesses, you can make some money that way, I suppose. Thankfully the merchants will respawn, and the one of the small settlements will sell you every single ingredient you need to make cakes outside of honey, which is just absolutely incredible and such a powerful tool in the late game. In the early game he will also sell you pal spheres and arrows, plus every kind of essence you might need, which can give you a nice little boost if you really don't feel like gathering basic resources and crafting items for yourself. The green merchant at Fisherman's Point will sell you a makeshift handgun, fire arrow crossbow, heat resistant undershirt, and a ring of flame resistance. An advantage of buying these items instead of making them on your own is not having to spend your precious tech points to access them, and if you can find your way to these merchants, you could get access to more powerful weapons ahead of time. They also sell all ammo you need, besides rocket launcher ammo, which becomes my go-to way to restock, as I'd rather use pizzas to fund my war effort than mine the resources to make ammo myself. The red merchant at Fisherman's Point will sell you a mega sphere, pal skills, a bunch of medicine, as well as leather, bones, horns, flame organs, and high quality pal oil, which are essential building materials for certain key items, and a better way to obtain them than actually going hunting for the certain pals you need. You can also buy lettuce and tomato seeds here for less than the price of one pizza, which is definitely going to be worth it for you in the long run. Of course, you also have your pal merchants, like you have in every town, where you can see what they have to offer. In Dune Shelter, the red merchant will sell you different pal skills, but they're the exact same things as a red merchant at Fisherman's Point. The blue merchant will sell you a more variety of cold and heat resistant armor, as well as a musket and some ammo, which can be another good way to get access to a gun if you can get to this location. There are also a few black market merchants like the one near Desolate Church, who will offer you more rare and interesting pals, and thankfully they too can be convinced to join your lovely community, and they will actually refresh their stock every time you put them in and out of the pal box. So there you have it, everything you need to know about the economy of PALWORLD. Is it honestly super important? No, not really, but it can make your game more convenient, especially when it comes to ammo or cake making supplies, because as long as you are making honey, you can buy everything else you might need to breed super pets like my little level 5 jet dragon here with nimble, swift, legend, and runner. And no, I don't want to talk about how long that took. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the information, I hope you consider leaving it a like, and consider subscribing to see more PALWORLD informational content like this one. One of the reasons I was going through this whole process was a desire to stream an attempt to beat PALWORLD without catching any pals, and instead having to go through the process of buying and breeding them, so if you'd be interested in seeing something like that, maybe consider following my Twitch at twitch.tv/BoraxTheMighty, but that's all I have for you guys at the moment. I'm going to sleep.